Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing out there tonight? Oh, today's show, impromptu show. I will be doing tomorrow's show at 9 p.m., but I wanted to get on here as soon as possible with some of the things I have found as I'm going, because if you're developing a map along with me, you might have to backtrack a little bit as I did at this next step. I got to the point where I wanted to start painting some grass on the map, and I also know that we want our map to be able to hold several fruit types, and a default map, just as in last year, is only capable of doing up to 16 fruit types, which is not enough for me. So when you go from the 16 fruit types either to 32 or 64, you have to make some changes with the MapI 3D file in order for them to be supported. And I'm going to go through those changes and tell you exactly what happened and how to avoid it. You're definitely going to want to. The reason why is because once you change those bit sets, the bits to paint grass, which is what I wanted to do on the map right now, change to a different number. So grass actually is no longer grass. It might not be there at all, or it might be a different crop altogether, or even a different growth stage. Hey, Nab, Luna, Nina, how you doing? All right, so we're going to go into my map that I'm working on. And to make the necessary changes, if you want to go to 30, we're going to bring up that in Notepad right over here. There we go. You want to do a search for your foliage sublayers, FOLIAGE SUBLAYER, and we'll search for those, find next, and they'll all be highlighted. Very simply, the number of channels here on the default map will be 9, and the number of index type channels is 6. By upping the 9 to a 10, we get brings it to a 32 fruit type support, and I'm just going by what happened last with the previous versions. And 11, going up to 11, gives it us the capability of doing 64 fruit types, which is technically the map. Now, fruit types are only the crops that have to be planted. 64 is going to be more than enough. Fill types such as gravel and those types of things fall under a different category. So this is just for the crops that you're going to be planting on the field, and we never even come, I don't even think we hit 32. But just to be sure, I always go up the number of channels. It went from 9 to 11 this time. Last year there were a couple more channels, and it had to go from 13 to 15. So basically, number of channels has to go to 11, and the number of index type channels to 6 in order to get a 64 fruit type map. I'm not sure if anything has to be done with this compression channels yet. That is new. So far everything's working with it set at 4. Hopefully we don't have to backtrack when we do that again. So I had to up this value, number of channels, to 11, and the number of index type channels to 6, as well as you'll notice all the density map channel offsets originally were 4. Several of them were 4. I upped those to 6, so they match the number of and the potato haulm was an 8, or no, I think that was a 6, but it has to go to 10, as well as the sugar beet haulm also has to go to a 10 on the density map channel offset. So after I did these changes to the foliage sublayers, what happened was I loaded it back up in the editor, and I got an error saying that my fruit density map image was the incorrect size, which is, I mean, my fruit density map image was not the correct size, which isn't too bad because I didn't do anything with it. So basically it has to be recreated, and because there's an the converter, GRLE converter, which is supposed to do GDM files, currently does not do it correctly. I had to go all the way back to my FS15 map, Rivers, and inside there I grabbed in the map 01 folder once again With the map01 folder, I grabbed my fruit density GRLE file, dragged it up, and you can watch my first episode on creating a map, how to do this, and basically pasted it in there. I converted it back to a PNG image, put the PNG image back into the folder with the map01 folder in my new map, and reconverted it, and it got rid of that error. It recreated a new fruit density GDM. So the error was gone. It created it with the proper number of channels for the second time, and that error was gone. But that wasn't the big issue that I had. Believe it or not, it was pretty simple. I hadn't started fruit density. What I did do, though, was the cultivator density, which holds all the field terrain detail under the field where you're fertilizing and stuff. Once I booted up today, as a matter of fact, I noticed I had a warning that the fruit density needs to be the same size as the cultivator density file. So basically, you have to do the same thing again with the cultivator density to get it to go back to a previous version. So all the work I did on my fields is gone. I got to redraw all 31 fields, which isn't a huge deal. We'll start that a little bit later tonight. Reconvert the old file, FS15 cultivator density file, back to a PNG, drop it in here, and run the editor, save it, and it'll create one with the proper channels now that the map has the proper channels set up. Now, I'm not going to get any further into... Look at all the chat there. How's everybody doing? So, it's critical. I'm not going to get any further into adding fruit. I'm still figuring, but it's an early step in the process to get your bits set straight before you want to start painting any foliage, whether it be fields or grass or anything on the map. They have to be the same size, and I figured that out the hard way. But that being said, we are back to, let me bring that back up, inside the map. I'm going to load it up in the editor. We're back to a working version, and I have experimented. We'll get into this a little bit tomorrow night on actually adding a fruit type. There's several changes there as well, but I wanted to show you what we have here and what I've been doing a little bit more this time, a little bit differently. So you can see all my fields don't have the fields drawn. What I have done yesterday, I spent most of the day repainting the old Goldcrest Valley with all the textures and getting it to match quite nicely. There's a couple areas over south here that are not done yet that I still have to get to, like, well, that has the roads, but a couple inside the map that don't have the different ground textures painted on them yet. But it's coming quite a long way since I started. We've almost got this restored the way it needs to be done. Another thing is, the way I originally set it up is the animal navigation meshes are not currently set up. But one of the things I wanted to show you is one of the changes I've made. I did get sugarcane into the map, although I don't have the ability to harvest it yet, and the field disappeared underneath it, so I have to redraw the field. But I made some changes to the sugarcane. I cleaned it up a little bit, took away some of the goofy looking colors. I increased the height, and it's my hope to get sugarcane so it will harvest the same way as poplar does with that header. I don't know if that'll be possible. I made it a little bit taller. We'll see that in the map when we get there. I cleaned it up quite a bit. But if you've noticed on PV Rivers, very often the distance map IDs are wrong. I just never took the time to create distance map IDs for a lot of the crops, and a lot of people don't. And it's one of the small details that I think will make the map a lot better this year. So I'm taking the time as I add every additional crop to get the distance map IDs. And what the distance map ID is, you can see a blurred vision of what the crop looks like originally in each of the different growth stages. This is actually sugarcane painted on the ground, and it's supposed to represent sugarcane from a distance. Well, originally all of them were very light like this throughout all the growth stages. I do want to change the growth stages a little bit more. I didn't even do the very small growth stage, but it should match the darkness of the sugarcane at that stage, not be a light thing when you're away from it in the map. And this will look the same when you are playing the game. You want it to represent, a blurry image of what the field's just out of distance, not really light, and then come in and have it noticeably be done. So for example, I've been adjusting those to make it look much more realistic. You can see now the colors match on the fully grown sugar cane. So when it's drawing in, it's relatively the same color. And I wanted to show you my method of creating that new distance map, which is pretty simple. It took quite a bit of trial and error to get a new distance map ID for the crop. But once you figure out how to do it, you see it's a lot nicer looking. It blends much nicer with the actual color of the sugarcane. So what I did is I created the sugarcane and I put it in the map just like you see here. And I took a very low image of a lot of sugarcane and I took a screen capture of that area just as we see. So I basically did a print screen and I went into my paint.net, and you're going to see 3 monitors of information on this when I paste it in, because when I take a screen capture, when I take a screen capture, it grabs all 3 of my monitors. So I'm going to just quickly cut out the part that I need to work with, and we'll let's see, image, crop to selection. So I have a basic color of the sugar cane that I want to work with. Then I resized that to the 256 by 256 that it needs to be. And if I was to put the image in just like this as a distance image, it gives this weird effect. And basically, to get rid of that, excuse me, I got to get rid of this thing in my throat from talking too much, I think. I used in paint.net surface blur, and basically you just raise up the image blur so it blends, but you have a little bit of detail, and you're just keeping mostly the color. And then I saved that into my map. Let's see, where's my folder? I've got too many folders. I really got to clear this out a little bit. The map I'm working on is in this one. And in my textures, terrain, no, it wasn't in terrain. Oh yeah, terrain distance. There you go. You'll see all the distance maps that are in the map, and I just took one, renamed it to, instead of foliage maze distance 2. This is one of the later steps, so I just named it sugarcane distance 7 is what I did, because it's one of the later ones. The earlier stages will get the 1, 2, 3, 4. 7 is the last stage. So I basically created the new file, which I don't need to do again, and I don't want to overwrite the one I did because it came out really good. So textures, terrain, distance, and your folder also isn't going to have all these. Well, you will have all these. That's right. They're in this folder. I got to show you one other thing as I'm thinking about it. So I now have a right here, foliage, sugarcane, distance, 7 diffuse. And I'm going to show you exactly how to incorporate those diffuse textures to your crops in the different layers as they're showing on the map as well. And that is by going back to your map i3D and open it back up in your editor. And we're going to take a look at, well, we might as well do this tonight. I was going to save this for tomorrow. I added sugarcane in. You could see foliage sublayer sugarcane. It's very different. I copied the line from my PV Rivers map to this map and made the necessary changes, which there are several because there's some new things. But number one, take your last density map ID index. It was 12. We're adding crop number 13. So I have a density map type index of 13 for sugarcane. As you add another one, you'll make it number 14. Basically, everyone has its own index. We set the density map channel offset to 6, just like the rest of them. Number of channels is 4. You're going to come to a material ID. Now you need to create a material ID for this material in the map. So I would name it something, a large number, put a large number in there. The map converts it automatically to a more sequential number later on, but for instance, say you make your map material ID 100,000 or something real ridiculous. You don't want an ID that's already being used. Early on in the map, you probably get away with much smaller numbers, but I always use like 100,000. It's easier to find. I would change this to 100,000, and I need to create a material ID for sugarcane, and I based it off of actually maize. So I went to material ID 127, and what I did was just basically highlight 127, and I searched upwards because I know the material IDs are above the foliage sublayers, and I grabbed this is for the foliage grass mat. I actually used corn, but very similar process anyway. And I copied the whole thing from one material marker to the other, and I brought it down to the bottom of the material list, which is right here, and it's not there anymore, but just paste it in before the end material tag and change the ID to the 100,000 just like you have down below. And the custom shader ID can stay is 49, which is correct because we grabbed it from if you're grabbing from like corn or something, the shader, it's the foliage sub shader. Once you have that, there's a texture file ID here as well that needs to be replaced. Now that is the texture file ID, and you will need to grab a file from basically the foliage texture, which in this version they go into a foliage folder right off the main folder where your maps and every other folder is. I found my good old let's see, where is it? It is foliage sugarcane diffuse file. That is the file that I need to link to, so you can do a search for, and I gotta delete all this because I don't want to mess up my map, and I've already done this, but we're gonna change this number again. I'll make it 100,052 to make it very simple, and then we're gonna go up to, and we'll find that file number 52, and we'll duplicate that as well by going upwards to the file section, past the material section. You'll see that there's file 52, which is the foliage grass diffuse. I pretty much copy that line to the bottom of the file section, which is right here. And because I know we're making it 100,052, it's pretty easy. Add the zeros in there. And it's in the foliage, but we have to grab the name of the proper PNG file, which is the sugarcane diffuse. So we copy that right here, so it's pointing to the right file, and you will have your sugarcane diffuse PNG linked. When you load this up in the editor and save it, all the numbers go back into much lower. We just got to make sure we're not overwriting a number that's in there. That's why I always use high numbers. And if I'm doing multiples, the numbers, you can increment them by 1 once you have the 100,000, whatever you want to do. I'm going to delete back this because that part will get you the proper texture file linked to it and the proper material setup, which are two of the 3 parts here. Or there's probably more parts, but we'll get to it. As far as the alpha blend start, plant rotation, and all of that, those values for the most part work across and are very similar for all of the crops. There are some slight differences occasionally, so it's always best to grab something that's roughly the same size and shape. Like sugarcane's a taller crop, so that's why I used corn, and just make it pretty close. So we're going to delete that. You're going to leave it in if you're going to add a crop to your map, but I'm getting rid of it because it's already in there. Next, we're going to go back to the foliage subshader section, which is down below the materials, and take a look at some more of the elements of the foliage layer sugarcane here. Let's close this out. So we've got up to the material ID, which would be the 100,000, and that's done. Cell size can stay at 8. It's pretty much the same as if you look all the way across. They're all 8s all the way up the list. View distance is at 80 for all of them, and that's actually fine because you can now in the game alter that view distance. That's the default view distance. The object mask on the one I brought in was different, so I made sure it was the same as all the rest of the object masks for all the other fruits that are in the map. Very simple change. Decal layer 0 wasn't there. Now the distance map IDs are exactly what I was telling you. And they're basically, right now I have it set to use 66, which is actually the same as, whoa, I hate when I do that. It's the same as the corn. This is the very first growth stage distance map. It has to be changed. That's why it's still yellow. I didn't touch it yet, but that's why it's very yellow and it needs to be changed. If I changed it to 105 right now, it would be the same as all the rest. I'm gonna make them all different based on what the fruit looks like on the field, but 105 is the one I created. So basically, if I do put the 105 in there, we'll show you what happens later. But what does that 105 refer to? It is a file number just as anything else. If I do a search and find that, and I put it in quotes so that it only pulls up the 105, there's so many numbers in this file. If I search up to the file, you'll see 105 is my foliage sugarcane distance 7 diffuse. You basically need to have the file line in there with the file ID for each of the distance diffuse, and each one is for a different growth stage, starting from the smallest growth stage to the largest. So as we go back down to where they are, right now I have them all set at 105, so it uses the same one, and several growth stages don't look too different. And when possible, if a growth stage looks really similar to another plant type, it would be fine to use that plant type's material index number as well, for the file number, to save graphics in the map. But for this case, sugarcane, it seems to be darker than most, so I'm going to probably recreate several of them. Some of them will be duplicated, some of the different stages. You'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stages, and there's actually nothing in front of the first one because that would be stage number, well, it's 9 growth states, and the last one, 71, is the withered state of corn, so it's kind of the same color. And that would be your 9 different distance map IDs. This whole distance map layers section, I just copied it from up above. That's new. Don't quite know what it does, but every one of them says 1111111. So I just copied one of those and put it down into this line as well. Atlas size is 1. Atlas offsets 1 space 0. That's all the same. They did a different, because you can scale your crop densities and stuff, you have the ability to put in, before we just had number of blocks per unit. There was just that number of blocks per unit. Now they have the number of blocks per unit default. I took the number of blocks per unit from the previous sugarcane from the previous map and made that the default. And I also made it the minimum. Number of blocks per unit minimum. Just copy one from up above, put it down there and add the minimum in. Number of blocks per unit maximum, I gave it a little bit higher, so if people mess with those values, it will change the density a little bit on their thing. The rest of the values I also copied from the other map, but I did do a few slight changes. The width of 2.9. The sugarcane this time is a little bit wider, takes up a little bit more space. It isn't as compact and small as it was. Changing the width brings that up, the view on the field of each of the little pieces. And the height maps are the same basically throughout the growth stages. It has different heights and it gets bigger. And I increased the last stage to a 5.0 up from I think the 3.9 or 4. I don't know what it was. The very last stage is the stage after that is the cut stage. Shows a little bit on the field. And then, so basically you can mess with each of the size stages or just copy the height stages from your previous map that you've done it from last year. And the text coordinates as well. Don't even know what all those they're texture coordinates. They work. All that stuff was in with the last one. You can have a width and height variance. They're also copied. All this stuff I copied right from the last map from PV Rivers, so because I know they worked correctly. And the number of states, 9. One of the differences they did here as well is they had number of states last year and then number of growth states. Apparently they eliminated the need to have the number of growth states. Growth states would have been 6, and the other 3 states were the planted stage, the cut stage, and the withered stage. And you don't need to do that anymore. You have to figure each crop is going to have that in there. And then the number of states set to 9 will give it correct. And that's pretty much it for adding a foliage sublayer. You just got to get used to the different numbers, go through that. And we added the sugarcane in. We can mess with the distance textures a little bit. And it comes out pretty cool. Next thing up, and that's going to be it on that for tonight. I just had to get that out of the way. Well, actually, we'll show you one little more thing on the map. Previously, what that does once we have that all set is, and Giants will even tell you in any of the videos, if you don't mess with those numbers, then when you're painting a foliage layer, let me get a smaller circle here, they will give you the bits for the foliage channel. And for instance, we'll take grass. Normally, painting grass without editing that would be just 6 selected. But because we have so many more options, 6 no longer paints anything, and that's pretty much what would happen if I changed it after I painted all the texture on there. We wouldn't have anything because 6 doesn't. One selects grass, 6 doesn't do anything. We've added more channels. So now if we select 7, we get the very low just planted grass. You can barely even see it there, but you can if you zoom in. We'll delete that back out. If I do a combination of 7 and 8, there's nothing. Let me see if I can remember. I guess it's just 8. 8 is fully grown grass. So fully grown grass is now 8 instead of 6, and that is why it's important to get those additional, if you want to have a high multi-fruit map, then you want to get this in there early. There is room for adding on the default, I think, what was it? There was 12 You can go up to 16, so you can add 4 new crops without adding to those numbers, but that's your limit. But now we can paint grass with the 8 key, and we're going to need grass there, so I could leave it. And we're good to go. As well as any of the fruits, it's just a little, even when I do the bit sets over, I have to go back and figure out what the bits, but apparently if I have sugarcane and I select 8, and it's not fully grown, 7 and 8 is fully grown for sugarcane. So we can plant sugarcane with 7 and 8 combined. And you'll notice that you get a lot more of the default foliage channels checked off. So sugarcane without 8 and 7 is 0, 2, and 3 are needed for sugarcane, and 7 and 8 is one of the growth stages. 8 by itself is a different growth stage. 9 is the withered stage. 7 by itself is the very beginning stage. So they're all relatively close together, and you can find them the way you want to paint them on your map. Let's see, what else was in here? Let me close this down without saving. Now, if you remember, I changed that one number for the low stage to the same texture as this, the 105 in my map. If I close this down without saving, because I don't need to save any of that, and bring it back up in the editor, it will reload those textures one more time around, and it should look darker. I'm going to adjust it so it's as exact as possible for each of the growth stages as I bring in each of the stuff. And Glenn Falcon 2002, is there possible to add a third train to the map? Yes, it is. I'm going to do a little bit on trains very shortly, so that was actually some of the stuff I figured out. Let's go back. We're into the map, and we'll go back over here, and it didn't change. Well, it should have. I guess I probably didn't save the file out there, did I? Let's see. Do I have the editor open? It will change. You just got to find out which picture it's viewing. And let me see. I got so many windows open. I don't know what I did. Let's bring it back up for a minute. It might be. There's my sugarcane. Oh yeah, I didn't hit the save button, that's all. So if I save it, actually, because I changed that first density layer to 105, which is the same. How many copies of this darn map do you have open? Apparently a few. Don't want to save anything yet. Now we'll bring it back up. Make sure you don't save in the editor before saving your changes out there or in Notepad++, which I've done in the past, or you end up overwriting everything before it's actually been saved. So that's why after I've done edits out there, I make sure I don't save in here. Now if we go back to that fruit type with the proper saves, you will see it has the same dark texture as the other ones. They need to be adjusted. I really only worked on the fully grown one. There are slight differences. These are a little bit darker. They'll look a lot different once I repaint the fields underneath, which is a good thing to do before you actually design them, because the field does show through. And yeah, we're going to work on getting all of those done correctly for a change, so when you're viewing the map it'll look a lot better. Trains. If you've noticed, we talked about the trains a little bit in the last issue, and I was having trouble trying to figure out, let's find a train here, how to edit the, oh my gosh, where are they? They're up here somewhere. There's a train track. I was having trouble with the new splines. Train system. You have train system 01 and you have a track spline. Basically, you can add a new train by copying train system 01, just I'll do it now, but I'm not going to keep it. If I duplicate train system 01, the whole train system, and rename it train system 03, we have a whole duplicate copy of that that train system on the map. You got to leave the center point at 0. You're going to have to readjust your track spline. It's right on top of the other one. You'll have to move it somewhere else, and you'll have to redraw the track underneath it by figuring out where you want it and building your own tracks. Or you can copy it exactly like it is and grab train system, the track sections from that same train system, which we would have to highlight one of the pieces to see where they all are. And that is considered this whole Railroad Loop 2 folder. And you could take it the way it is and move it over and match the spline right back up on top of it. But chances are you're going to want to alter the train itself down the road and make it go different places, because, you could do it this way, but you would have to redraw the hills and everything like we're doing with the roads, and we will have to do a lot of that. So train tracks, once I get the roads done, the train tracks will go in next. So if you have the railroad loop and your train system track spline, you notice you can highlight the spline and you can put it right back onto the track, and it's a very delicate procedure because everything has to line up and look good from every angle. So if we dragged it straight across, it's pretty easy when you do that. But as long as your spline system follows the track and up the hills, your train will follow the track. And we have a train system 03 right there. There's one other thing you need to do. It has the train system on create in the user attributes panel, but we have map 01 train system 01 XML because we copied it. We're going to want to make that into our train system 03 XML to give it its own train configuration, and then we have to basically in the train system XML files, and I got to delete this whole thing because I'm not doing trains yet. Say goodbye, but I'll show you. What we would do is in our map we have train system 1, train system 2. Just grab one of those, copy it, paste it in here, and as long as the number in the file path points to the right train, train system 03 XML can be read. Just add a new one in, and it gives you the ability to alter the train configuration right here. So if I wanted to, say, remove the 2 sugar beet carts I added and add on an additional grain cart, I could do that by just putting a grain cart at the end rather than the 2 sugar beets by duplicating the line. Very simple to do. One of the cool things about this as well, if you really want to get super advanced on trains, and we may, depending on the time, it's very easy to do configurations like this. Once again, don't put a lot of wagon timber trains. The 2 that are on most of the trains, or 1, is about all it can handle for trees moving across the map. But one of the things I would like to see done, if I can get Big Daddy to work on, is converting one of these train carts into a flatbed for hauling pallets, and I'd like to see another one that can have pull it up to a loading ramp and maybe load some heavy equipment onto it to put on the train as well. So basically right now all these trains are pointing to the $data folder, which is in the map. In order to do something like that, if any of you guys want to experiment, send me your trains. We'll see if we can get them in there, if they're working. Hey, some side projects. I'm all good for that. It's one of those things I won't have time for, but if you guys want to experiment with creating your own train, then go back to your C program files. Let's see, where are we? Program files x86, farming simulator, data. Notice it's in the vehicles, and then it's in the train folder. We'll see the I3Ds for each of these trains. This folder also has I3Ds for the trains in the other map. Yeah, Sosnovka, I think it is. So it has actually duplicates because that one doesn't actually isn't the same type as the one that's in this, because this one's more of a vehicle that you can drive and that one isn't. So you'll see that some of them have the K1. You don't want to grab the K1 ones. You want the name exactly as it is here. So wagongrain.xml, if we go back, if I can find the folder I just hid, you can literally go into the wagon grain, find it, not the one with the K1, I3D, and open it up in your editor. At this point, what I would do is make a train folder in the same location on my map, and I would export this whole all with files. Whoops. Let's try that again. Export all with files, and I would make the train folder and export this train exactly the way it is into my map in the same location. So it would be under data, which we don't have, but it would be in the vehicles. We'd create a vehicles folder and a train folder inside that. Inside my map, so I'd have a vehicles folder here, which I can put in there. Heck, why don't we just do it? It's so easy. And then we would go new folder, trains, or is it train? Make sure you get it exactly right for this train. Alright, so it's train. Whoops. What did I do? Hit caps lock? Yeah, I did. Okay. Hey, my typing's lousy. I'll admit it. So we have that. While we have the editor open, I would go File, Export All with Files, and I would browse to my map that I'm working on, which is in here, and I would go to my vehicles, train, and let's call it, because I'm going to have, we'll just call it a flatbed, because I want to see if down the road I can make this into a flatbed train. Alright, and then I'll save it. Get the parent directory structure. Yeah, why not? I always do that. For some reason it asks you, so it must be important. Once you do that, inside this train folder we have a copy of that train cart that we can now try to reconfigure. You might want to take the regular flatbed trailer and do the same thing, import it into the same folder, and see if you can take the cart itself, which the wagon viz off the dolly, the cover, and try to put something else on top of the train and save it, and then you'll be able to, down the road, for instance, if you can design a nice train by putting a new flatbed on there, you would just go back into here and remove the $data, because it's going to point to the vehicle folder in your file, and you would grab the XML file for the, well, we would have to copy that over here too from the $data, the actual XML file. And then you would just repoint to the new XML file, which would call this train cart, and then voila, you'd have a new train cart on your train. But we're not going there yet, so just so you know, that's how that would be done. But there's one last important thing about trains that we did not show you, and that would be, what did I do? I deleted the wrong train? I think I did. Why do I Yeah, no, I didn't delete the track. I just deleted the nodes. We want to get rid of this whole train system, track 2. Trains are going to be very tricky. A railroad loop has several pieces, but it's not going to be the easiest thing to set up because you have to make both ends meet. So let's take a look while we got this out in the field at the different pieces of track that we can use. We have a rail ramp. So imagine for every rail ramp up, you're going to need a rail ramp down so that the ends meet back. This is a rail snake. You can see it has a little bit of a turn to it. And then there's another rail ramp which brings it back down, or maybe even brings it up again. So if it goes up twice, it's going to have to come down twice. You have a rail 90-degree turn. And you're going to have to make sure these things butt up absolutely perfect, not overlapping as you create your track, because if they're overlapping even the slightest bit down the road, like so, then this part's going to move in too far to line up with the next one. So you really gotta, and you're going to be adjusting it quite a bit. So look at your translation values and try to get them exactly perfect, pieced together. You have several rail straight longs in a row, so you have the rail straight long, but it's really using the rail snakes, the rail ramp, rail 90, and rail straight longs for the whole entire loop. So a combination of those and swapping out the 90-degree angle in the different directions by spinning it around. Eventually you'll have to make it so it's heading back and you have the right number of pieces to get it to reconnect to the track so you have a loop. And I can now delete Railroad Loop 2 because we're not doing that one right now. But the last part about the trains, in this part we discussed very briefly. I didn't know how to do it. And did I just delete the whole train track that was over here too? I might have moved it. I'm not going to save. Oh, there it is. Because that would be disastrous. So get back to our train system track spline file, which obviously is not on the track. Oh, I did move the track. It's not there anymore. Good thing I didn't save. If you mess something up like that really bad, you just have to re-import it from the original map or make a backup copy. But the important thing is the dots are red and blue, and I was sitting here trying to normally you could just click on them and they would, in the last version, and you would highlight the node so you can move it, but you can't do that anymore. But one of the things they did was, prior to this version, the train spline nodes wouldn't even be visible when you selected the track, and all you need to do to edit them is turn the visibility on in the attributes. You click the visibility and now you will actually see the spline that shows up, and now grabbing the nodes is possible, so you can move your spline to adjust it to the center of your track, and if it's going uphill you can raise it up and down. Now if you use your arrow keys on your keyboard, it jumps to different nodes along the track in either direction, so you can easily jump to the next one and adjust that one. This takes a little bit of time, but till you have your curves right and everything. And if you have a really long straightaway like so, you don't need as many nodes in it. So you could very simply, let's see if we can get this to come up here. You can highlight one of those nodes, like that one for instance, and if you hit your delete key, it removes it and it jumps back to the other one, and it basically makes everything in a line. And if you need to have more nodes because you're going around a corner, just use your insert key and it will add an insert a node right next to that one. So you can see we have one here and here, insert key. Actually, it's going the other direction, but it put one in between that one and that one. So between that one and that one, if I hit the insert key, it adds another one directly in between. So it gives you more flexibility for tight corners and stuff with your... And this works exactly the same way with your pedestrians and your traffic on the streets. So if you figure out how to do your trains, you can do your traffic on your roads, you can do your people on the streets and make your own guys walking around and all of that stuff. I have to save this, not save this and open it back up before we get too involved. Make sure that I didn't save it by accident somewhere along the way, which is possible. But I'm going to bring that open just to make sure my train track is still there. Maze Plays, thank you for the follow. I don't hear my alerts going off anymore tonight. Those alerts are driving me crazy. Can you post a link to a donation link for my Civil Air Patrol Squadron? You are selling wreaths. You can send me the link, and I will check it out and see what it's about. And always want to support those types of things would be great, but I want to check it out first. So PM me the link, and I will check it out, and maybe in our next broadcast we can get it up, which it will be tomorrow. So that's the way I would prefer to do it. And I'm sorry if I announced that all to you guys out loud, even though it might not be showing up there. Who knows? I can't discern with this AnkBot what's a private message to me versus... So sometimes I just read them out loud. Alright, let's make sure my train is okay, because I got to show you guys a couple other cool things tonight that I've learned. Yeah, the train tracks are both there. We're all good. Let's go into game on the map that doesn't have any fields drawn. They will look like they're there because of the missions. Moldy Swedish Truck, thank you for the follow. But this is something that I had thought about, another one of the tests that I've run. And we're going to do it because I want to show you guys, recreate the test so you can see exactly what you'll be able to do down the road as well with your maps. Which is another kind of cool, interesting feature that thinking outside the box is kind of... I'll explain to you a little bit what we want to do with it once I show you exactly how to do it. So I got a brand new clean save game on my map. It looks exactly or very close to, minus the grass and stuff, as Goldcrest, because it pretty much is in the center, but on the outside it'll be a 4x map. But actually I don't even want that. There's the trains. I want my tipper. I want to go over to a silo. And if there's a little bit of lag, I've got so much running on this computer, I'm surprised it works, but we'll get there. And I am going to grab start filling. We'll grab wheat. Wheat, fine for this demonstration. Did I mess with the fill plane a little bit? It looks a little bit off. Well, I copied the fill planes in the map. It looks a lot bigger than it did before. I'll have to check that out. It might be one of those scaling issues. What did I just do? I got stuck. Like I said, never said I could drive. Was wheat that big before? I don't think it was. But I'm loading the fill planes directly out of the map now because I had to edit the fill plane material holder. So it might look a little bit different. We'll get that all straightened out. Scaling things. Definitely some big pieces of wheat there. And they probably have to be scaled a little bit differently. But I basically wanted to dump this. Let's dump this here. Control I. And make a little pile of wheat on the ground. As you can see, we have a wheat pile on the ground. Now, we're going to just make sure we have our wheat pile right there. It looks like wheat much more so on the ground than it did in the trailer. We're going to save that save game. Well, that was quick. Make sure it's saved again. Okay, quit the game. What you could do now is if you go to your save game folder. Oh, wait a minute, it's getting there. Let's see. Which would be under Documents, My Games, Farming Simulators 17. Find the Save Game 2 folder, and you have this terrain detail height density.gdm file. If we copy that now and go back into our map folder and we go into our map 01, we have the same file here. I'm going to double check, but do I have it? Yes, I have a backup copy of my terrain detail height density because I'm not going to put wheat on my map. But if I paste that in here, overwriting the blank one, replace the file in the destination. Now what we have is, we'll load up the map again. And I'm going to delete save game number 2, and just to make sure, was that 2? Oh crap. Wait, back. Quit. I want my save game 1. What the heck happened there? Don't delete the save game 1. Where is it? Documents. My games. Oh no, my save game's gone. I got a save game backup from 10:29, 11:1, 11:3. Yeah, we'll grab that. Let's get that back. I want that. That's the one game I've been playing. Let's make a save game 1 folder again. Do not delete your save game. Oh, spell it right so it knows where it is. What the heck? What am I doing? Get my information back in save game 1. Let's try that again. That's a big oops is right. I might have just rolled back like a couple hours of my save game, but hey, it happens. How much money do I have? I just copied. Oh, it wasn't even the right one. Oh, well, I'll have to find the right one. Let's take away 2 for now. We'll show you anyway. I'm going to go up here to save game 7, and I'm going to start a brand new save game and get back with this on my Pleasant Valley map. You just deleted my save game. Now I gotta start all over. That's the game I've been... No, I hopefully I can get a backup. But that's the game I've been playing since I started, since it came out. It's the only one I've been playing. Well, if I can't find it, I'll be starting it on my own map anyway. So basically I wanted to show you, by copying that file into the map, I am starting you off with a pile of what we have here, which is the wheat windrow. Exactly what it was, but it's in the starting file of the map in a brand new save game, right where I dumped the wheat. So you can add crop piles to your map, but what we want to use it for is I want to create a large portion on the map this time with already pre-dumped sand, gravel, and make it so you actually have the sand and gravel to dig into rather than it being created as you're digging. So it'll be much more like these regular piles. Granted, there's only a height of 400, I think 40,000 per, but it can be as big of an area. So we're going to hopefully have huge areas of sand and gravel on the map, and somewhere underneath we'll have a refill trigger that will work just the way it did in the old days, where you'll scrape the ground and be able to fill up after you've removed all of the other stuff off the map. But that is something that we can look forward to because I figured out how to do it. So we've touched on adding your own piles to the map and the terrain stuff. Those are pretty much the three basic things that I wanted to cover, and the fruit stuff especially. And I'm going to try to save my save game before we go anywhere because that's just bad news. Let's see. But before we do that, more importantly, I always want to go back to my map, and I will put my default terrain detail back so I don't have an extra pile of stuff on the ground, weed on the ground. But it's as simply as taking your one save game file. So you literally have to go in and manually put the piles in. I could not find any way to put them in outside the game, but then create that density file, which is the height file for stuff dumped on the ground, and bring it back in and copy it into your map, and then it will be there. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, my games, Farming Sim 217, save game backups. Is there a way to tell me? Let's see. We have 11.3. 11.3. Did I play today? I don't think I did. So let's try yesterday. Let's see what map this says. Map 01. Nope, that's not it. Save game 1. Oh, save game 2 backups and save game 1 backups. So it would be save game 1 backup. Let's check this one out. Why do they all say... What is this new file? Save game 1 backup latest.txt. Latest auto backup. Okay, cool. I would think it would be this one right here. Yeah, that's right. It is map 01. What am I thinking? Because I'm not using my default map yet. Okay, so let's copy those files back into my save game 1 folder. And check it out. Make sure I got it back. Never done that. Well, not this year anyway. Delete my save. I'm just moving too fast, I guess. Hey, it's back. I have my $51,000 and my 67 hours played. Okay. That's all I wanted to see. Thank you. Let's go back into the editor. And yeah, I'll never be able to say I'd never done that before anymore. I have to redraw several fields. The terrain detail underneath them, that is. So I'm going to show you exactly one more time. I know I've done tutorials on this, but you can watch me do them. Basically, you have your field markers already. If you have Goldcrest Valley, I already have the field markers, which makes this a huge help for me because I know where the fields actually have to be. And I will grab field 1, corner 1, starting way over there again. That's corner 1. I even have a blade of sugarcane floating out here for some reason. Get rid of you. Alright. Corner 1 starts... Oh, you can't have any foliage layer selected when you want to see this. And corner 2 is over there. So in order to draw all these over, I need to have my foliage layer selected and foliage layer terrain detail. There is the terrain detail height below it. You would think you could draw piles on the surface, but it doesn't work that way. It will draw a pile, but it won't give it a fill type, so yeah, I couldn't do it. I've experimented, but that is the height layer of the piles. It just won't draw the pile fill types on there. Alright, I usually unclick, take a close look at where the corner is and keep my eyeball on it as I re-click my terrain detail and try to get it exactly where the corner is. Take another look from both angles. It looks pretty good. Now I've got to check the bit sets on this, but let's make a little bit bigger area here. Now this field is running from here to this direction, so the grain of the field is going the wrong direction, and I didn't do this the first time around. I'm going to try to figure out exactly which one runs it. That is not it. Is it bit 3 set? Nope, that you can see it. Bit 3 gives it so it's fertilized already. Bit 4 gives it what the heck is bit 4? I have no idea what the heck it's doing with bit 4. Bit 5 is diagonal, but so we're getting close. Maybe bit 6. There we go. So get it running the direction you want the grain to run with the field before you paint the whole field. And it's always good to write these numbers down. And I don't, then you won't have to remember them. It's been so long since I messed with those that it is one of those things that I just keep forgetting. After I do 31 fields, I might have a good idea now that I've done it correctly. There is also bit settings in there for making it, like I said, fertilized and cultivated and all that, but the basic terrain is the way most of the fields start out. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a little ways out and check where that corner 2 is again. Normally you would draw the field and put the corners in afterwards, but because I'm using the default gold crest, I want it to be exactly like gold crest in the middle for now. We'll make the edits later so that it if I want to shrink fields or make fields larger or combine them, but I want to get it back to the original first and then decide what changes will be done and get it pretty close. And then we have to draw from corner 1 to corner 3, which is way over there. So we'll go up this side. Basically going to create a box, and you only have the 3 corners, so you get to square it out yourself afterwards. And get zoomed in pretty close when you're doing these, because the edges are very hard to see sometimes, and it's nice to have a nice straight edge on the field. Now with the mission system, it's crucial for me to get this exactly in the right place. The mission's going to be appearing here even without this underneath. The mission would appear. And once we get down here, we'll find out where that corner marker is. Once again, that doesn't seem right. It seems awful far out toward... Oh no, that's right, because it comes right up to the edge of the field. That's right. That's where the pull-off area is. So we can go right up to the edge. And it might actually overlap it just a little bit. And it does. I didn't have those pull-off areas. I had to redraw all that back in too. So, and I went a little bit further than I want. And then from that point, we have to basically square the other two sides up. This is the first thing I did when I started. The fields are actually kind of neat to draw in. I like the way that they draw in. The second thing I did was put all the roads and all the mountains and everything, textures back into place. Yeah, so now, like I said, it's connect the dots, keep bringing both of these corners out so you have a nice square. You could, and most people will be, putting the corners on later. And there's one other thing I want to show you that I found out. I don't know if you guys are aware, but once I get this field drawn, if I remember by then, I'll show you that as well. A little bit new about the fields. And it's probably going to also change the direction of what I'm going to do with the map a little bit, so we'll discuss that. And that's why doing all this drawing and stuff, I do a lot of experimenting with things, like when I get to wanting to do that idea for putting the gravel on, I had to run the test there to see if it would be possible, and it worked. So knowing things the more I know what's going to turn out ahead of time, the better. Once you have your border done, you can increase your size quite a bit and just fill it all in and make sure you overlap. This is the part where you guys will find the little grass spot that I kind of missed because I failed to overlap part of the texture. But you definitely, and then you'll yell at me because your plows are turning around in the middle of a field when it hits that very minute little grass spot. I suppose if you really wanted to be sure, you could go like out here, and then you could take your brush and try to scale it up to the field size.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Your desktop is showing. We don't see anything in Giant Center, just to let you know.
Why is that?
For some reason I'm seeing your desktop with a mod folder switcher.
That's weird. It's not capturing my... Do I have the game running behind there or something? Oh my gosh, desk type, wrong screen. Let me see, why is it... You see me moving the mouse, but let me see if I can figure this out. Hang on, folks. I'm going to save this and try to bring it back up, but I have no idea why it's not showing what's on my screen. Maybe... we'll get it fixed.
Alright, no problem. Just wanted to give you a heads up.
Why are you watching the desktop? Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm not reading text. Trash. Well, yeah, trash. I'm not reading the trash. No. Technology. Let me see if we can get this back normal here. I should really check back and see what everybody's looking at. I got 51 viewers watching my desktop and my mouse move around. I'm waiting for the map to save so I can close it out and see if it re-triggers the screen, so be patient. It probably locked up. It's done that before. Did that the other day. I just turned off the display cap. Buggy. It's just buggy. Alright, so anyway, we're back.
You're good, everybody.
So I just drew in this field while you guys were watching my desktop.
Yep, now you're good. Now you're good.
Thank you.
No problem.
But have no fear, you didn't miss much because I have to do it another 30 times. And we'll do it all over again. Field number 2, field dimensions. This one's going to be a little bit trickier to redraw back in. Corner 1 is right here. And we'll find corner 1. And basically, I know corner 2 will be over there. So I took and set. Basically, I got to bring this back down to a reasonable size. 5 for the radius. Make sure it's square. Terrain detail is set. And I get a good eye on where the point for that corner of the field is, roughly. And then I place my first square. And then we will check, and you'll see that I'm overlapping this direction too much. So we'll back it up a little. Much better there. That one looks pretty good. So we want to draw from corner 1 to corner 1, 2, which is right there. And again, you'd be putting your points on your map. A little. Delete it and start over. You'd be doing the corners of the fields normally, but because I'm redrawing the fields, I mentioned earlier that converting from the GRLEs to the GDM files. Well, unfortunately, that converter, once you have a GDM file, it won't convert it back to a PNG, so I lost all this. It's something that down the road they'll probably fix, I hope, because it should work that way. That one looks pretty good right there. But you never know. Because they don't have it working, I have to redraw all the fields. And now I'm going to go to that marker right there for corner 3 on this one. And you will notice one of the things that's crazy about this version as well is that in order to have the hired workers work properly, they needed to draw a lot more small squares on fields that were, and I overlapped a little bit, on fields that have even just the one jagged edge so that the hired workers, the missions would work properly. Went one too far. That'll work. I'd rather be overhanging a little bit. There'll just be a piece of the terrain outside of the mission than have the field itself not have the texture underneath the crops when the mission's there instead of us owning the field. And I'm going to explain again once how those missions work on here in just a minute, but we'll do the first square. And this is where I said it gets a little interesting because I normally, and I might not be able to finish this, I normally have, as we look at corner 2, 1, where is that one? It's right over here. So we will draw that corner in right there. That looks pretty good. Corner 2, 2 is right there. So we'll draw out to that point. 30 fields to go. But the painting of this is pretty cool. For some reason I'd much rather do these than the dirt and stuff around them because it's working with sharp lines. I guess it's pretty easy compared to the textures themselves. Getting those lines lined up. And then we have to go to corner 2, 3. And this is, alright, so we got to draw it out to that point right there. Let's check it out. Get it out that way. Give yourself a wide enough box so when you're filling it in, it's a lot easier. Dun 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 dun. One of the other things I have to do is, you see that train track over there doesn't have the gravel. It's one of the few things left. Putting the gravel under the train. We got to bring it up a little bit more. And I went way too far because I took my eye off the screen to look at the chat while I was in the middle of the thing. Okay. So the corner is right there, and we'll get to that in a minute. We'll square this field off, and that's why they have two pieces for this field, because it's an odd size field. Odd shape. And normally I would bring up the field on my other screen, and I probably should, to make sure I get the shape right on the corner that is missing. See how they did it? Sometimes they make a straight line down. Sometimes they leave it squared out like this and it's just an L-shaped field. So I'm going to bring that up in the editor and we'll compare the two and we'll recreate it. Anyone that has extra corners has been created a little bit differently. And it's when I use this small square like this that I leave grass spots that make, like that one, that make your guys' harvesters turn around in the middle field. So yeah, see that? If I leave those behind, people will yell and I'll miss some. So I should get in the habit of going back out, like I was saying when you guys couldn't see me, and making my square really big, but not going outside the field edge, and just doing a tap right over the top of these areas, just so it, if there are any, oops, I don't think I hit the inside of the field there. If there are any toward the center of the field, at least I'll cover those. Don't want those grass marks. So with this we have multiple corners. I'm going to open up the default, my copy, if I can find it, my compare. It's a copy of the original map. That way if I do happen to hit the save button on this, I don't mess up my default game. But it's literally a copy of Goldcrest Valley. And I usually have this on the monitor with all the other stuff on it there. So we'll go to the same place on the default map and see what we've got for the corner. Alright, they left it. See, that's why I'm glad I didn't fill it in. I kind of thought it was. They left it squared off. So, oh wait, I'm in my own map. What? Oh no, Emma. Wait, what's going on here? This is the compare. Why don't I have the I'm lost. No, it's my copy, but oh, I guess I'm just zoomed too far out to see the gravel and stuff on underneath the railroad track. Yeah, so there is the field I did in the original map compared to mine, which it looks pretty much exactly the same, except for I don't have the gravel underneath the track here or the grass planted around it. But I did do all the roads back and everything. Now, one of the things I wanted to mention while we're on the fields, before I paint another 30 of them. If you go to your field information, you have the field area. And because of the missions and stuff, I'm probably going to measure the fields exactly in the game by harvesting them once this time, rather than using my formula, just to make sure it's 100% accurate for mission prices and everything because they're going to be based off the hectares and the time will be and everything. So the field area is going to be important to get right. And the way I'll do it is I'll take a clean save game and I'll look at the, you do have the, in your statistics, how many hectares you've harvested right down to the 10th. So you bring up the combine, you harvest the field, you look at how many hectares were there, I'll copy it into the map, and then go on to the next one. The field job vehicle spawn direction tells the vehicles where to spawn. I haven't had to mess with it too much. And the price scale being 1, I guess is the low price scale, the regular price scale. 1.5 would probably make it 1.5 times expensive. But the NPC index, and I don't know if you guys realize this, I didn't until I ran a test yesterday. Each of these indexes correspond to a picture of a farmer that pops up on the map. And let me go down here. That's right, I don't have the fields drawn on this map, but I think it's fields 23. Yep, 23 right here has a farmer, whatever his name is, NPC index 1. And field 22, which is right over there, this field here also has an NPC index of 1. So basically the same farmer owns the 2 fields right here. And what I did notice after my test is if I was to do a mission on either of these farmers' fields, my reputation goes up for not only, it goes up for the farmer himself. So if I took a clean save game, I harvested this field, and I checked the stats on both fields ahead of time, and the reputation went obviously up on this field and the price went down, but it also did on this field because the farmer owned the same field. The farmer also owns this field, so literally if you're doing missions to get your prices down, you can find the smallest field and keep doing that one over and over because it drops it for all the fields as you're doing the missions that that farmer owns. And why I wanted to test that out is because as we design this map, I'm going to probably go along the lines we did in the original PV17 with 6 individual farms. This big plot of land will probably be divided up into 2 of the farms, the original Goldcrest, and then we'll add 4 more on the outskirts in the new area. And we'll assign a different NPC index for each of the farm's fields. And what that will do is give every field the same farmer name. So I'm going to look in, I'm going to go through the different NPC indexes in a test, see if the farmers' names are cool enough to put on a farm. Say this was owned by Farmer Hasting or whatever his name is. Farmer Jones owns this. So we can put up a little sign that said this farm here is the Jones farm. And if you're in multiplayer and you're going to, if you guys decide to operate individual farms, you'll be able to go up to, and if it's a Farmer Jones farm and you're running the Jones farm, then that's one of the fields you could buy, and we won't need to have those borders on the map telling which farm, which fields belong to which farm. We can make a list, but it'll look a lot better. So that is, the missions do not work, but the farm ownership still pops up that the farmer owns it. And if you're doing it in single player, you will have the missions. So if you're going to decide to open up a separate farm, you'll know which fields to work on for that farm. So it'll serve a couple different purposes. Yes, the missions don't work, and they will not work. It's not a feature in the current edition, but you will at least be able to go up to the NPC. When you click on it to buy the field, it'll say that farmer whoever wants this much money for this field, and whatever index number I choose, it will be that farmer. So in single player, you'll be able to work on certain farms one at a time, and in multiplayer, you can decide how you want to play. It's just one of those options. On to field number 3, which I need to field by trigger. Field dimensions. Field dimensions, corner 1. Please don't have a lot of corners. Okay, 3 corners means it's square. Let's find corner 1, field 3. And it's right there. So, whoa, we need to get this back down to a reasonable size. I like 5. Let me see where that was again. And try to hit the marker close. Check out my mark. And I probably want to extend it out one in that direction. That one looks good. One might be too much, but like I said, I'd rather have it overhang a little bit. Yeah, we'll go back the other way. That is way too much. Alright. Find corner 2. Which is right there, and draw my lines. So tomorrow and part of tonight, this is what I have to do, redraw 31 fields. But I'll probably jump to something else just to keep you guys from getting completely bored. It can't be as bad as the road the other night, though. That one was amazing. I took forever to draw the one road. I think it would. I bet you I could do all 31 fields of this in the time it took to level that one road last night. Corner 3, where are you? Way over there. Also, if you notice, when you're doing a map, just a side note, I have it solid grass texture underneath all of the fields. Now, normally it wouldn't make too much of a difference, and you can decide what texture you want. But if people decide to use that little roller to remove this field texture, what they get is going to be whatever you left underneath. So if I had actually a cement slab under this field, and you guys decided you were going to delete the field and bring it back to its original state, you get the terrain texture that's showing underneath. So keeping it clean and consistent for the most part. There may be fields on the map that I think would be better off served to build something on because they're really flat down the road, and I may change the underneath texture to the dirt texture, or who knows, some surprise textures so you could actually have a nice layout for another farm you create. You could do that underneath the field if it's deleted. You could have a whole new road system hidden under there, and if people delete the field, they can add on to it. So I'll look into doing that stuff later on, but right now it's going back to all grass underneath most of the fields anyway. Whoops, I did it too far. Now it's all checking it out, and then we gotta make the two corners meet up the other two corners. Yeah. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I know. Hey, I had how many people watching for a few hours of me leveling that road out, and I've got so many more to do. But in the meantime, as you could see, especially with map developing, there's only so much of certain things you can take in doses. So knowing what you can do ahead of time is quite important, and mixing it up so that I don't necessarily have to do all the fields right now, because I have several little different branches if I get tired of doing this. And what I will do is I'll do a little bit of painting for you guys tonight too, with the railroad track that's down there that needs the texture, and we'll mix it up a little bit. It's going to be repetitive after a while because I've got weeks worth of this stuff to do, especially the road leveling. Uh, but you you know, you got to just know what you can do when, and switch it up. You get tired. So that's why I went in and I do a lot of research during the day too, trying to figure out the new things. I don't know how to register a fruit yet. I'm been toying with my own fruit register script. I don't know any real Lewis scripting. If you guys ever come up with a multi-fruit map, or somebody releases a multi-fruit script, because you can't run scripts in the map, I'm assuming it has to be a mod now. But I can draw the fruits, we just can't harvest them yet. So there you go, another field down. And we have to do, well, there's 31 fields and that's 3. So they go pretty quick. The parts that take a long time. And here we are back on a railroad track. And we'll take a look. I'm going to bring the radius of my brush down to, well, we'll bring it right down to 1 for now. And turn the brush on. We'll make it round. It's easier to work with round when you're doing underneath stuff. And this is going to be gravel for the most part. And you want the adds function set. And I want to start on this track at, we'll start right here at the railroad station. Now, let me bring up the copy of this map, because sometimes as we go around this railroad track, we're going to come across certain places where extra detail needs to be added in, like the dirt right around that little thing, and I want to be able to quickly jump to the copy to see what's going on. But basically, if I have everything set, you could see that I'm drawing in the, and I could probably go with a bigger brush so it won't take as long. We're going to draw back in the gravel back underneath the whole entire railroad track all the way around. It's one of the very few things left on the map, and let's compare it to the gravel right now on the other map to see width-wise and everything how it looks. It looks very similar. Once we get the grass foliage planted in up to the layer, and what I usually do at the end, after I go all the way around with one loop, we will go back with the smooth tool, so we don't, if there's a lot there, it's fine. And I will drop the hardness down to a lot lower. 0.2 sounds good, we'll try that. And I'll put the smooth tool on. And a note about your smooth tool as well is what texture layer you smooth is the one you're going to be smoothing into. So for instance, and I'll give you a good example. If I have smooth set and I have gravel set, as I smooth, I'm extending the gravel, which is not what I want here. What I want is to have the grass set, so when I smooth, we're bringing the grass back in and kind of making it. Now, I put way too much for that low smooth value to work, so we'll redraw it back in. But as we go down the track, to get it a little bit smoother edges, you just kind of, and if you get too, see, that's why I use very low values sometimes, the smooth. It kind of blends it in a little bit, so the gravel looks like it's going to the track. Smooth the edges a little bit. I'm going to go back to the gravel though, and put the add tools back on, and let's just roll with the gravel all the way around the track. It's a big loop. I'm going to bring this out a little bit further. I got to put the dirt around that little thing. We'll do that right now. I will look for parts that I did not hit this time around. And it doesn't have to be exact. It's not going to look exact. We want it to look proper. But to recreate somebody else's work, like I'm trying to do, there's going to be issues. But most people won't know. Now, this is where I want to bring my smooth with grass back in and just thin out my dirt around the outside a little bit. I think the pole was in the dirt. I can't remember. Yeah, it'll work. You can see how they have the dirt going around the outside, a little bit of dirt on either side, and I do as well, so I'm happy with it. We'll move on. Can't spend forever on those small details because it really doesn't make much difference. But we'll get most of them back in as I go around the map and find buildings that don't have, and most of them are going to be along the railroad. I'll find a lot of buildings that might have a little bit of dirt around them, like this one here. I did do all the stuff on this one though already, so we're good to go. And I'll do one more pass once I get the whole circle done and hit the edges and make sure it looks pretty decent. But right now I just want to color it all in and bring my gravel back. Now also, one of the things, if you notice, it's drawing in pretty slow. You can get them hardness values back to 1 when you're doing this part. It'll be a lot quicker than sitting over the same area, as you could see. We can do it a lot faster. And we're coming up to another area here that has some buildings that are all completely in grass. Now, as I get here, you notice I can't paint over here. There's something wrong. And I know exactly what's wrong, and I'll explain that to you. It's a very important thing with Giants Editor, and that is, if you look at the text on these chunks, you will see that and it's kind of hard to see sometimes, find the square inside that square, and this is the label that's inside the square. It says it has rough dirt 5, grass 74%, forest ground 4%, and mountain rock 19%. Well, the forest ground on this chunk is right over there on the edge, and I probably got a little bit carried away. This is supposed to be dirt. Let's check it out and see if forest ground is the one that doesn't belong there. Because you can only have 4, and yes, see, it's all grass actually up here. So I went overboard with forest grass when I was painting that forest, and this should actually be grass. So if I go back and get this out of here, as out of this whole entire square, then I'll be able to bring back in the 4th texture as the one I need. And I think eventually I got to bring this back quite a ways, so I'm going to just get forest grass out. Now, one of the things about this as well is it's very hard to tell. You can see how there's even a little bit of forest grass mixed in, and you can see even though it's there, it's very hard to see. So you get to a point where you think you have it all, but you look, I have a forest grass of 1%, and I can't see it. What you can do at this point is select your forest grass from your foliage layer, or your terrain layer, excuse me, and or forest ground right there. Select the forest ground from the texture layer, and then I'm going to put my right mouse button on remove. Now if you I right click my right right mouse button. It says remove current layer from terrain chunk. If you click OK, it just removed all the forest ground from this terrain chunk completely, even though I saw a little bit disappear up here. It probably replaced it with dirt, which is just fine. It's along the edge of the hill. It kind of adds to the terrain a little bit. But I do know now that I don't have that in the square, that if I go back to my gravel and continue painting my track, I can now go into that area and get my gravel down, because gravel is now the fourth one. So you can only have 4 textures per chunk of the terrain. It's a good thing to know if you run into that problem and you're wondering why the heck is that not painting. You will be able to get it done. And we're going to also take a look back once I get to this bridge and see what other features of the landscape I might have missed around those buildings and bring them back in. So we'll look at this from this angle, and I'm going into Giants Editor and we'll do the same thing. So we've got a little bit of dirt around this building, dirt around this building, the silo doesn't, and there's a dirt spot off the back of the silo there. There's a road that goes in right here. I don't think we have that either. I'm going to go back and just get those into the map the way it was, or close enough to it. Again, don't worry if it's a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. I'm fine with it as long as it brings back the details that we had somewhat. We'll bring it around this building as well. Paint it in. And depending on what you're doing, you can mix it up a little bit, which I have been doing here and there. So let's go over here, paint this around. Now, is there anything between the hopper there? I almost think maybe it is. There's a gravel road that goes from there and extends off that right back around the bushes over here. So we'll get that road back in. We'll change back to gravel, and we know the road comes pretty much as wide as the ramp off of here. I'm going to move back, and it gets a little sloppy with the circle sometimes, but we'll fix that all up. And I like wider roads as it is anyway, so we'll just bring that right around the trees, back to the track. And again, if you're not happy with your edges at all, I'm going to make it a little bit wider there. Then you can use the smooth tool and get some of those details out, but that looked pretty good. It looks much better in game a lot of times than it does in the editor. And once we get grass growing back around the edges of all this stuff, it'll look better as well. I just try to keep them relatively consistent in width-wise as I'm going through. I might want to take and bring some grass back a little bit this way. I don't know. No, we want that back as gravel. Too thin. Keep it roughly as wide as the ramp all the way. So we want to bring this back down. I imagine it gets pretty narrow through here anyway because there's bushes on both sides, so we're good with that. We've got that road back in. Then we have a dirt road that goes somewhere from over here. And 2, or roughly, I'm at 1.8 right now, but that's roughly about the size of most of the roads, the dirt paths in the game. A little bit wider than that, so I always start with 2, and it's a good size for driving vehicles on too. Do a 2 and then just one box off to the left or right helps you fix it, so it's approximately the best width. Now, when you get to things like this, it's also kind of fun to go back to my gravel, turn on the smooth tool, and just make the gravel go into the road in a little bit so the two blend together. You can do the same thing with the grass if you want to clean up the edges here, like where this dips are. We will go back and we will get some dirt and try to fill in this area a little bit with a blend. Makes it a little bit cleaner edges. That looks pretty good for that section. Let's see if there's anything over here, because it's very green, and when there's a lot of green I tend to think I missed something, and I did. See the rocks out here? We want to get that detail back too. So, as if you watched the other day, we will change to the mountain rock, and I already know from previous that the slope start limit for around here is about 40. You can experiment, but if you set the slope start limit and leave the slope end limit at 90, as we're painting our rock on here, we will hit the sharp face here. We can even use a huge brush on this, and we'll hit the sharp faces of the rock. We might even have to go a little lower for this one. We'll compare it in a few minutes once we get the rock, but it'll leave the little flatter spots to the green, and the faces will turn to the rock, and you can see it's starting to get a pretty random look, but it's just the sharper faces of the rocks that are turning to the rock texture. So let's take a look from this angle here, and at the original map you could see that what they have done is filled in. It actually looks like there's a lot more compared to mine. Let's check it out. Definitely a lot more coming out, so they probably used a smaller angle at this point. We'll go down to 30 and it will still hit those areas, but give us a little bit more of the rock texture around with leaving the flat pieces normal, and it's a random look anyway, so it doesn't have to match theirs exactly. You just want it to look pretty cool. So painting around this area will look, mine will probably have a little bit more rock in there, but it's not very useful land anyway right now, so let's bring it in. And that shows you where all the faces are too of the rocks, just by coloring them up. Definitely looks a lot more interesting once we get grass planted in all the green area that's left. That will be good to go. So there we have my version, and here we have theirs, and it's very similar. They have some grass planted leading and hiding a little bit, but it's very similar now to what they had, so I'm pleased. And we can continue on to the other side of the bridge. It looks like we did have to do a little bit of rock in here as well, possibly. Yeah, there's a little bit there. The faces of the underneath the bridge. Get that terrain detail. Whoops, my mouse button isn't holding for me. Bring those rock faces back. My guess is that they have a little bit of grass coming down here, because they've been pretty good about not putting trees into the middle of the rock areas. So I will go back and just do a grass on that point. run a little grass up to that tree too, and that'll look good. Back to my 2 circle and continue on down the track with gravel. Let's see. I'm not painting gravel, so I have either something wrong. Oh yeah, I do. My start limit. I always forget that. It has to go back to 0 or you can't paint on the flat surface. When you're switching between those things, it does get kinda... So what the heck am I doing? It's not working. I don't like how far out I went down there, but we'll fix that with some smoothing in of the grass. There we go. That works good enough. You could also use the undo key a million times. I've done that too. There's no real right or wrong way. You just gotta recreate the effect you're looking for. And actually, if you look at the way Giants did it, it's very, very random along the tracks with the thicknesses and stuff. I'm going to go a little bit further. We have a house here, which tells me that there should be dirt or a road or something around that house. So we'll come back and check that. On the other one. Going down the tracks. Yep, a little bit of dirt around both buildings and out to the track side there. And like I said, it doesn't have to match exactly, but it gives it the details into the game that you want to have. And I'm going to take that dirt and smooth it a little bit closer to the railroad track. Kind of blend it in a little bit. As well as take the grasses back here now. Whoops, smooth. And just thin out the gravel around the tracks. Make it blend in a little bit better. And continue on down the line. Now there's a lot of green up here, but it could be, I think a field is supposed to be there on my left, which I haven't redrawn in. Yeah, definitely a field there. And this face is good enough, so let's go back to gravel. Yes, so today you get to watch me go around in a circle. At least it's not a road. Radius of 2, add gravel. Radius 2, add, what's going on here? We got rough dirt, grass. So there's a small piece of rough dirt in this one, 2%. And that is going to be interesting. We don't have gravel in there. Concrete. There's 1% concrete. That's where this is going wrong. The line, it's under the road. So when we delete the concrete chunk, somewhere under here I got concrete into this chunk. I need to go to the concrete. You won't even see the difference because it's hiding under the road. Right click to remove. Now concrete's gone. And I can now get my gravel back through that area as well. I do know they have gravel all the way around on their tracks, so if there's an extra one that I overpainted by a little bit, I have to remove it from the chunk. And it's usually the one that's at 1%, just a little overflow from my painting. And it's very hard to paint nice straight lines on a track that curves with this tool, so that's why we go back and blend everything in to make it look a little bit decent. It's easier to blend in if you have too much than it is if you don't have enough. Sometimes you get really nice lines, like right here. Pretty cool. It's a straightaway right down the hill. And off to the left, I see a section of trees that has rock faces but no rock painted on them. So we'll have to hit those. This looks complicated. Why don't Giants Editor make a slope for working the terrain? The tools in here are pretty decent, but there is no way to... Yeah, I know what you mean. The slope would have been a slope function. Technically, there are ways to do a slope, but to get them exact to the roads and stuff are close to impossible. This isn't as complicated probably as it looks once you get used to it. It is when you're... Whoops, excuse me. When you're first starting out. Take baby steps. There's just a little bit of stuff to know, but it's stuff that I find, because I'm not a modder. Well, this was the first program I ever used. Never did much modding at all. Very little stuff prior to this. Never did anything like this before. So if this looks complicated, the other programs that you use are much more so. This is a great place to start learning modding for anybody. I recommend it because literally once you get used to the tools, it gets pretty simple. Let's go back up here and smooth out some of these jagged edges so they look a little better. With some grass, it's just a matter of learning your own techniques to get this stuff down. I'm just taking off the points a little bit. I don't like the little pointy things there. And the smooth tool will take care of those and thin it out, as well as blend it in with the grass a little bit. Whoops, I don't know if I want it that close to the track, so I'll undo and go a little bit slower. I know a lot of people also don't go too crazy with the extra detail, but I usually don't. I'm going a lot further this time. Got to keep making things better. That's my philosophy. Always try to improve from your previous project. I've done some things, but definitely gonna see what we can get into this map this time for details and bringing it back to life. And spending a few extra minutes on everything usually helps out a bit. I didn't like that. And I'm doing it again. Sometimes it's just the way the blocks come in that are... I don't know if I want that there. Let's try this side. That'll work. Try to stay somewhat consistent with the railroad track. Yeah, see, it cuts off far in there. I'll leave it. This side can be brought down a little bit. When you're editing this stuff, you're editing in chunks, so you don't always get the perfect look that you want around, especially around objects. You know, you try to paint in the backyard of a fence with grass on one side and dirt on the other, and there's always a texture bleeding through to the other side. So you find creative ways to make it look good sometimes. And it again, when you're in the editor, these things sometimes really jump out at you. Then you get in game and it's like, oh yeah, that looks just fine. Other times it's you don't see things in the editor, and when you get in game, it's like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? So it definitely, after I'm done with everything like this, I'll do a drive through with the train, not the terrain, the train, and I'll spot some areas that I don't think look as good as others, and I'll go back and fix them up a little bit. LJ Stott, thank you very much. I don't know what the heck is with these donation alerts. Let me see if I have no idea why they stopped working again. I had them last night. I didn't change anything, I swear.
Hey,
Yeah.
just let just letting you know, you had two donations tonight that didn't go off. Doc donated $50 and LJ Stock
Docket?
donated 20.
Docket donate? Why aren't they going off?
I don't know. I want to give you a heads up here.
Thank you very much, guys, for the donations. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry that the donation works aren't working. Donation alerts aren't working right now. And my list isn't showing them yet either. I'm gonna try to restart that real quick. See what happens.
Never.
Just the Twitch alert part.
Yeah, no problem.
I do have, yeah, docket, $50. Buy a case of Pepsi. Now maybe they'll work. Who knows? But thanks there.
All right. No problem.
And no problem, LJ. Hoping that it's worth it for you guys. I know I don't consider myself an expert by any means on this stuff, but I do know enough to make it dangerous, and I'm still searching out there. Every time a new thing is released, especially with, it's a figuring out process for me too. I got the smooth tool on, and it's always a figuring out process for me as well on several things. And a lot of times it's waiting for someone to come along and show me some of the stuff that I don't know as well. So I figure it can only help when I figure stuff out for those people that don't know and I haven't found it anywhere else, that get it out there as quickly as possible so other people can continue on their maps or learning, if you're learning for the first time. I just think it makes it work much better. I look forward to finding information. Right now the next hurdle I got to get is adding the multi-fruits so that they are in the map. And somebody out there knows how to do it. That's another thing. I'm sure that I'll find it very soon. There'll be a multi-fruit utility script written or something for me on one of the websites. And I will be able to use it. But if I figure it out before then I'll bring it to you guys. And I will bring it to you guys as well when I figure it out. Because it just makes it easier to find things if the more places that are out there. Knowing that you can't register fruits within the map, and there's a lot of changes to the way fruits are registered as well, that I need to get some documentation that I can't find. So it's definitely a learning process, but it can be fun. Sometimes the biggest challenges are the most rewarding when you finally figure them out too. And I can't get exactly what this is. One of those turns, these straightaways that just looks like crap right now. We'll get it back. Gotta make it a little wider and then bring the grass in. That's all. If you look at the original of this track, it looks pretty much probably exactly as jagged as mine. In spots anyway. I noticed that before. I'm sitting here trying to make it look really perfect, but if you went to a real railroad track, it's not going to be perfect either, so make it visually acceptable. There's only so much you can do with the tools that you are given. Hopefully, by the time this map is done, and I have to go back and catch up some of these really jagged areas, but by the time it's done, you guys should know how to do everything, because if I've come across something, I want to get it out there for you. And step by step, the whole map process will be up here eventually. It'll be a lot of videos this year, that's for sure. See, it looks a little better when you take off the big points and make it a little bit narrower in some places are fine, but I just don't want that really jagged look, so I'll smooth it out. There's a building here that probably has some dirt around it. Maybe even in the tracks, because it looks like a silo. Who knows? We'll find that out. Also, doing this for I've decided, and you guys slap me if I say anything different later on next year or 2 years from now when FS 2019 comes out. I have decided that I'm going to wait this time and probably going to end up doing the same thing as I did last year and this year, which is taking the map, if it's decent, it could end up being crap, but usually they have a lot of the new features in it. I'm just going to wait, and we're going to use that map and bring it up to a 4x size. Now, if I say anything different near the end, remind me of that. Alright? I said it last year, and I was stupid because I started a project and I probably could have been doing something else. But the thing is, so much changes, half the time you can't use that project anyway. And you want to make sure you take advantage of all the new stuff. So, yeah, if I say anything different, remind me that we aren't going to go there this time around. Although that map is converted over pretty well, I could start back on the other one at some point. We'll wait down the road for that. Was there mountains back here that didn't have terrain detail on them? Somewhere? Yeah, right back here. We gotta hit those before I leave them behind. Let's go back to Mountain Rock at 40 and a bigger circle and get that detail in there that we so much like to see. That really makes a map look a heck of a lot different when you can paint the faces relatively easy. I think that we want to go a little bit lower though. I think there's should be some showing on this side somewhere. Maybe not. A little bit better. I'm good with that. Just want to make sure I get those points around the map where it looks like it's getting too green. You can see I've done a lot of this before. Get those parts in there, little touches. That's pretty close to all green on that side, but we can get a little more in there. The beaches I put back in. Yeah. Big green spaces for fields. Boy, that looks like crap. Right there. Let's see. Back to 2. And I'm actually smoothing the gravel out a little bit in that because it was pretty thin. Yeah, it'll do. Right here's another spot. So you could work it either way. Just know which way, whatever you have selected is the material that's going to increase as you're smoothing. Bring a little bit of gravel back there. And there's some bumps in the field, which I want to try to hit with my mountain rock. And they're not very tall ones. Let's try another lower number and see what happens. A little bit in there. So if you have small bumps, I just want to highlight these. They got to be highlighted. I'm not even going to check the other map. But they're so close to the field edge that you'll be riding up on your equipment with them if they're not highlighted with something here. A little bit of rockage. A little bit of rocks. Anybody has any questions on anything, just throw them out there, and I'll try to catch them. Rivers 15 had single size map. Oh, wait. You want a single size in FS15? That ain't gonna happen. I don't go backwards. And that's Big Daddy just trying to cause trouble. You want a single size map? There's tons of them out there. I actually will, if I do a mod contest map this year, it's going to have to be a single size map so we can get a high detailed one. Or actually that's usually next year, I think, or August. Yeah, roughly when they'll run the contest. It'd be nice to have this done by like March. I think it's in the year. Is it the coming year or is it the year after that they do the mod contest? I can't remember. Seems like a long time ago. But it's all good. They better not let BM modding in it anymore. They practically work for Giants. If you guys have paid for the making of videos, the DLC pack that's up there, I purchased it hoping I could learn something, but because they had some modding tutorials, and yeah, if I'm doing mods I probably learn something, but I do maps and they never give you any of the details for mapping. It's just the way they work. So I didn't learn much, but they had the making of videos, and BM modding crew is there at the studio like 4 months prior to the release of this, testing it out and giving their opinions on stuff. You know, I'm not saying that they work for Giants. And that they're affiliated, but what it comes down to, and that is that their connections get answers on how to do different things that are unfair to the rest of the mods. So if they're in there again, you know, if they run into a problem, they probably got the phone number. Just call them up, Giants up, and say, hey, I'm trying to do this. They've got inside info, and that's what makes it a little bit unfair. That's all I'm saying. They might not see it that way, but if I am trying to figure out how to do something, I have to look for help. I get posts on the Giants forum and the Giants developer network that never get answered all the time. So either they got to be more responsive to people that are asking their questions, or they can't allow them into the contest. That's all I'm saying. Did B&M go to CNC? Well, they were in the video. That's I don't know if it was B&M that went to Cattle and Crops. It could be them as well, but they definitely were in the making of video and were at the studios ahead of time. Uh, and if they decide to get into that mod contest and then I mean, they do great stuff, don't get me wrong. I just know that they've had the inside scoop all the time, which makes it unfair to everybody else. Fortunately, they don't get into the map part of the mod contest, so I still have a chance. I have to design the next map after this one. Here I'm talking about the next one already, and this one's like months away yet. But I have to design the next one with a little bit more European feel. If I got to find a creative balance where we don't have tight roads that are impossible to drive on, but we have a really detailed, nice map, but accessible fields to win over both the European vote as well as the American voters or the Germans, because farming is definitely different, and they see farming differently than we do by their area that they farm in. It's just done differently. We have a lot of flat, large fields out here in the U.S., whereas they don't so much. All in all, though, those videos, the making of, pretty interesting, the timeline that they were working on. Right now, I imagine, because they did it the last time, they probably already had their meeting, or they will very soon, as to what's going into the next version of Farming Simulator. Certain key features. Because according to that video, it starts 2 years from the date of, and based on the feedback of this version as well. All in all, that little $7.99 package, yeah, I didn't learn a lot from it. I got a couple nice tractors. One, the Stealth Edition of which actually I'm not too fond of. The Stealth Edition of the Challenger is in that pack. It's like flat black. There's no gloss to it at all. The Black Beauty Edition of the Fendt, though, is a lot nicer than... It's pretty nice. I am creating a map for FS17 and will be here going through each and every part of the process as I do it, so anybody that is having trouble with anything, they'll be able to look back on these videos, and I'll try to teach them a little bit along the way on how I did certain things, and I still got a lot to learn with this new edition, so it's going to be fun. But sometimes nerve-wracking, like it was yesterday. Have to redo certain things. It is what it is. I've had worse, and might have worse yet to come, because we don't get... That's one thing I think the Giants just needs to improve. The initial release, they need to have just a little bit more information for us out there on what's going on, especially for the map makers. There's a lot out there for the modders, but all the little changes under the hood for the map makers, it's usually... And you can see people out there trying to figure out stuff like crazy. And it happens every single time. It's usually several weeks down the road before we have answers to some of the things like the multi-fruit. Although things are going faster this time around, I will say that. The modding actually is easier. Whether you believe it or not, the conversion process, and that might be a little bit tricky, but for the mods and the learning curve, you got another learning curve that people were hoping not to have, so that might make it a little bit different. But once you learn it, it the mods should get much easier to make, and there's some new features in the engine as well that will help make better stuff down the road. So I think the mods are just going to keep getting better, and hopefully a little bit less error prone, as many of them still are right now. But it's amazing how many mods are out already, and yet I don't even know if people test them sometimes. Do they not test them? Because some of the errors that are coming out are just so blatantly ridiculous for starting off that they obviously weren't testing them in the current version of the game, or I just don't know. It's crazy. When am I gonna release the PV silage map? Sultan of silage all the time. We're gonna make the biggest silage place ever on any PV map right on this one this time around. Now, we're gonna run the train right up alongside of it and then have it go by all the animal barns for you. Now, I don't know yet. A specialty silage map, if that's your thing, it could be done. There's Andre working on his map again, dropping it into Dropbox. See, he's just the other guy on our team. He's over there working on a map that those guys are playing on the server as I'm trying to get something ready for us to play on, which is still weeks out before we can get this up on the server. So they're playing on a single-size Gold Crest edited edition that he's been working on, trying to get things. Another interesting thing is moving bunkers isn't so easily on this map. You know how the bunkers hold the grass in on the sides? We moved the bunkers on, and maybe you got somebody out there has figured it out already. I'm sure we'll figure it out eventually. There's a note on the forums waiting for the answer, but still haven't heard one. When you move the bunkers, the stuff starts going back through the walls. Tried to move the cow bunker to, expand the room around the cow farm, and he moved the cow bunker, and I can't figure out, but the bunker doesn't hold the silage in it anymore. It slips through the walls. So go figure. Another one of those little things that will come out eventually. I'm not there yet, so I don't have to move it around yet. If I get there and the answer's still not there, I'll tackle that problem. Or Andre will figure it out. Let's go back and make this look a little bit cleaner. We've gone quite a ways here with junk. I think we're like halfway around. Oh, we got a lot of mountains on the left, I think, too, that don't have the bumpy stuff on. Look at that. Yeah, we got to go through there and hit those up. I did most of the stuff on the outside of the map. That's why I'm finding a lot of the terrain on the inside of the map that isn't finished yet. And I'll be finding it for several weeks as I drive around and test things out. And it's just hard to cordon off areas and say, okay, whoa, that area's done. A little tricky here under the bridge. That'll work. A little better. Again, when I start planting the grass, you plant the grass on the field up to the edge of the tracks, and you'll also help to hide the places with the ugly edges, and it just blends it in and makes it even look that much better. So you just gotta be halfway decent, not crazy. I'm probably getting too technical with it right now. If you look at, like what I said, if you look at what Giants did in the original version, it doesn't look any better than what I got here right now. It's just that all the extra layers around it help to make it look good. That'll work. A little thinner. Alright, let's see what we've got here. We've got some mountainous range. Add mountain rock. We'll start at a slope of 40. It's my favorite number. And a bigger cursor and paint. And I want to hit some of the stuff over in here, so I'm going to... Oh, there it is. Get that detail in there. Yeah, it's like watching somebody wrap your Christmas presents. That's interesting. Grabby, having the yeah, having the grass up so close the water won't drain away and the ties will rot. Well, guess what? It's gonna happen. Our railroad ties are gonna rot. I want to get this down even further because I'm not getting any details. So we'll go with 30 in here. Get that in there. A little bit of detail. Looks okay there. We've got some dirt there. I don't want to do that. Okay. Yeah, that'll work. It'll work on that side. How about over here? We'll get some... maybe not. I don't know. 30 is definitely too much because my trees are in the rock. Slope limit start 40. That's better. That's what we want. And you can blend it right in with the dirt around the edge. It's all what you like. Randomness makes for a pretty good look, usually. Oh, right. Where are we on this road to... How much further do I have to go? Up, around, and back to there. Hey, we're almost there. We're getting there. Here, let's hit this up right now. Oh, no. Not that much. Hey, that actually worked out pretty good. I like that. Why did it partially delete? I have no idea. But yeah. Sometimes. Whoop, no, don't remove the terrain chunk. Do I have my slope limit set right? Yeah, I do. It's awful high. I don't know how the heck I managed to get that one place with the grass half in it. I really don't. Let's go back to... Now I can't... Alright. I'll go to 45 and see what happens. Too much. What about 50? Yeah, 50's working a little better. It's going around the trees. That's what I look for. That it's going, actually the paint is going around the trees because the trees shouldn't be growing out of a rock surface. And this side has definitely got to go back to 45, I think. I might even level some of these areas and make them into nice places to cut trees down. I don't know. We shall cross that bridge if we ever get to it. Alright, back to the road. Oh, this way. And I move around quite fast. I can't wait till this one's done. When I get done with this, it'll probably be the end of the show tonight because I am coming back tomorrow night and we'll do some more. But we've got a little while to go yet. There is a map under the mod menu in game called Maps. There's a map in the map folder called Map01. I'm not exactly sure what you mean there, but oh yeah, let's get back to 0 or we're not going to paint flat ground. I do that all the time, as you guys have noticed. Switching between the different features that you can do. There's also erosion features, but I realized it wasn't really needed on the rock here, and different things we can cover if we get to it. You can experiment. I often experiment by blowing up values to absolutely ridiculous amounts, so you can see what effect it's going to have, and then try to gauge a little bit better after you do that to see what number you would actually want. And I do that with like sizing crops, like when I was adjusting the size of the sugar cane. I wanted to see what it looked like at like a scale of 10 from 3, and boy was that tall. And then figured out about where I wanted it to be, so I cut it back to a 5, which is right where I wanted it. But sometimes visualizing it on a overly scaled setup, you really see the effect it's going to have exacerbated, if that's the word. And then scaling, it's a lot easier knowing where you want it to go. Just so you know, I'll do a little test up here once I get up here, because I was telling you something earlier and I'm getting tired of painting, but I will get this done. But let's find a field spot here and want to test something out. That's pretty good. I got to put some dirt around that. I'll smooth this out in a minute from way back here. Alright. What I was going to show you guys is on the foliage layer, there is that terrain height layer. And like I said, it would be cool if I could just paint the height of a terrain. Let me see with my new bit system if I can figure this out. Terrain detail H is the terrain detail height. Not 2, not 3. I'll find it. Let's try 6 up here. Alright, we're getting there. And 7. It basically is the layer that would pile windrow on the field. And I think it's 7, 8. No, it's even higher than that. And I had it figured out on how high those piles can actually go. 8 and 9 is a pretty high pile, but I think it goes even higher than that. Nope, 9 goes back down. So let's try 8 and 10. I think that's where it was. We'll try 9 and 10 just to be sure. Nope, 9 and 10 even goes higher. So if we were piling stuff on the ground, that right there is as high as it will go. So if we do a gravel pit and pile up our gravel, we can get quite a bit of gravel in there packed in with the setting of 9 and 10 when we start pouring it on the ground. Delete. Unfortunately, I can't just put the gravel in the map or a pile in the map because it won't let you do anything but the terrain texture. It would be cool if I could just make a pile of windrow over here, but can't do it. But that's with that setting. I don't know why it's even in here. I think it just has to be because it detects all the layers. It's in there but not editable. Editable. Alright. Why is my grass not painting? Because I'm not in the foliage layer mode again. I mean the texture paint mode. I always forget to switch modes. I'm jumping around so much between doing things. Well, if this is like seeing someone wrap your present, it's going to be a long present wrapping ceremony, so there's a lot of surprise. Just think of it as a million little presents this time. Every time you log on, there might be something new that you'll say, wow, that's pretty lousy. Now, that's pretty interesting, because I'm going to try to bring a lot more into this map than I did in the past. A little bit more attention to details, and we'll see what we can come up with for features to make it a little bit different. Like I said, we got some stuff to work with. What we can do with it, I'm not even sure. That's why I actually keeps the motivation to keep going as fast as I can, because and put in all these hours. It's like getting past this step will mean that I can move on to the next step, and then eventually, once the terrain's all settled, then we get to work on the train system and mess around with that a little bit. And there comes a point where then we start to add the bells and whistles, and it's that part that I really enjoy, seeing what we can come up with new. But in order to get there, you got to get past the first part. You can't do it all out of order. Nice little house on the railroad track. Oh dear. Yeah. Check Marhu 10 times a day. I'm there all the time myself, looking for. I want to see the fabric script up on Marhu's site. I wish he'd get that going. That would add some excitement. uh, a multi-fruit utility script would be really nice again, so I can set up the multi-fruit, register them all in the map. Even though I can draw them in the map, I can't register them so your combines pick them up yet, because there's some changes there as well, and I don't know what they are. I have a feeling, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not a script writer, so I fudge things. It'd be much easier to have somebody else figure it out. So while I don't need to know, I will keep looking, but I've got plenty to do for the next few weeks in the meantime, and when I get bored, yeah, I might give it another go, but just to break it up, get out of the editor and do some research, see what we can do. Got to look more into the pickup objects, see if we can manipulate them a little bit. Make it so we can give them fill values of something, and who knows. We need to have a map set up to start putting that stuff on. That's the big key. Also, the expandable silos, I'm really interested to see if we can utilize them in any way. I know that the UPK is out there and he's working on some new features that people have requested, I guess, but who knows what he'll come up with. It'll be interesting. Alright, let's smooth out this last piece of track. We'll go back a little ways. Back to the house, maybe. It looks pretty decent till right about here. Let me get some, actually the gravel on first, because it's a little thin, right? Smooth, gravel. Why is it doing grass? No, it's doing gravel. It's just very slow. Not quite pulling it out like it should be. Something's wrong there. There it goes. That'll work. I'm not gonna spend all day unless I look in the map. I'll come back to it if it looks really terrible. And around the corner. I can't wait. Whoa. Do you see I'm smoothing the grass into the, taking away some of the rock texture there. I'll be careful through here. It'll do. It's very tight. Looking good. I love it when there's straightaways. They're so much easier to work with. So Twitch alerts changed to Streamlabs. I went and reset everything up. I did my test alerts. They worked fine yesterday, and ever since they switched, I don't know what the heck's going on. I might have to find another place to get the alerts done, but I see that we got Country Boy 3037 and Zurian and Moldy Swedish Truck, Maze Plays, Bass Pro 78, The Rooster. Thank you all for the follows today. The donations from Docket, a huge WP Docket, a huge $50, and LJ Stott, another $20 donation from LJ. Really appreciate it immensely. So that is a loop around. There might be some hills in here I think I need to hit a little bit more while I'm on the right track. Oh boy, I'm getting to that point again, folks, where it gets a little bit crazy around here. 40 isn't hitting it. That's probably why I don't have any paint on these little hills. Or do I have smooth? Yeah, smooth doesn't exactly work. We'll do a little bit of painting in here. It's pretty good. Once we get some grass painted in, this place will start looking really good. I think I got to put all the fields back in, so that's why you see large empty spots, but all the terrain is drawn in. And I'll be probably finishing that up early tomorrow, getting the rest of the little. There's a few roads that haven't been done on a couple of the fields back here. This one here, I think just 2 fields on this side, maybe even just this one. So when I put the dirt back in over here, yeah, all in this area, and I get the, I'll look around for some other spots that I might have missed with the rocks, but I think I have it pretty much. Oh, we need to do one layer inside the, and I don't know. I know it's in here. It's called Town Grass, and it looks like they just went add town grass, slope limit 0. I think they just went like this for the town, the whole town. See that? Town grass, so it blends in with the outside edge. So I have to do all that too. It's kind of cool. I imagine there might be some roads and stuff that I have to find in here. I'll take a closer look at it tomorrow during the day. But we're almost to the point where we'll be strictly working the outside terrain levels and painting very soon. So all this stuff has to be brought to the town grass. I think all the driveways and everything, it might be that easy. It looks like all the driveways and everything are actual parking lots like this one here. I don't know about that square yet, but looks like I might need to do a little in there. But all this stuff is just town grass. Another nice little effect. And easy to do. Fill in the squares. Simple as that. There's lots of them. Not sure along the lakes and stuff, but we'll get. I'm sure there will be little pieces as I go along, and I'll hit them as we find them as I'm working the outside of the map. But for the most part, I think we're getting really close to getting the heck out of the regular part, because we got to paint the foliage layers. That's gonna take all the grass, the real grass, the mowable stuff. But that's a whole nother show. Or about a whole nother 10 shows. Yeah, it's starting to look interesting. But yeah, they just use this in every block in the city to blend in with the sidewalk grass that's all the way around. And it's pretty darn quick to do. I don't know if they put any actual growing grass on top of this. I'll have to check it out. I'll switch over to the editor and see what they did. Gives it a little bit of different look for when you get down in here though. See that? Now when you zoom out it disappears, but once we and I've definitely got some more along this river to do. Some dirt or rock. We'll get to that tomorrow as well. Oh, more town grass. Like I said, I will be finding spots that need to have stuff done for the next. Now I guess there's some problem here because I can't get town grass in there. It probably isn't supposed to be town grass. Let's remove it for now. We'll look into it. Let's see what we got on the other one. You could see, I could see it painted everywhere, just about, except for the center circle here. Yeah, they got it, except for, like I said, around the lake. So every block that has buildings looks like it has it. Now, did they do anything with it with foliage layers? I don't think they did. Oh yeah, they got some regular weird yellowish grass in here. What grass is that, might I ask? Is there a second grass? Dry grass? Must be dry grass. Let's check it out. Dry grass. It's a much smaller circle than 500 would be nice. And because we should be able to do that with a 6, because this is an unedited version. I think that's it. No. Well, it's close. Maybe with a 7? Yeah, dry grass. No, wait, it's not removing with dry grass. If it was removing, it would remove it. Subtracting would take it off. So it's not dry grass. Town decor grass. That's what it is. Yep, town decor grass. So we got another grass type that we can use to decorate with. Of course, not like that. That's messy. But I'll have to go back and, when we get the foliage layers, get some town decor grass planted in those. Oh, let's see. So they have all the blocks. I have all except for, there was one that I had somewhere. Or didn't I? Did I get it? Well, where? I gotta go to my map. This one here wasn't painting up very well. Town grass texture layer. This one works. So I have a terrain chunk right here that has 1% mountain rocks in it. So once again, we'll go to mountain rock, right mouse button, remove it, and then paint back my town grass. Should be able to, wait, where did I remove it from? Well, that chunk has it off. That's good. Oh, it just took a while to actually register, apparently, because it's going fine now. Do. Another block. Is that all of them? Nothing behind me? The park stays the same. All the other blocks in the town have town grass that have buildings. So yay! Inside the inside walks, there's taller grass. Yeah, well, when I get down to the grass foliage layers, we'll take a good look at that. But it's definitely got quite a ways to go. Foliage layers will be fun, painting all the real grass in. And I know I got some more bank work to do here. But I've kept you guys long enough, 3 hours. I want to keep it so I don't crash by overloading the video again. Thanks for watching. And thanks again for the new follows and donations. Tomorrow night, we'll see what we come up with. I might be doing more of the same, but we will always have fun talking, and we usually come across something new during the whole process. We might even get into painting some of the grass tomorrow as well. So thanks everybody for joining in. I will be back tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with another show, and we'll see what we can learn. Have a good night.